is the rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shout it loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
stay the at home. The Rona is spreading. This is no joke. It's no time to work or roam. The way you can fight it is simple, my friends. Just stay the at home. Now, technically, I'm not a doctor, but mother listen when I read a poem. So here I am, Sam Jackson, imploring you, keep your ass at home. If you want things to get back to normal, don't panic. Just use your dome. Wash your hands, stop touching your face, and stay the at home. Motherfucker, it's no time to gamble. Look around, you're not at a casino. Just stay the home as if your name was Trenton Quarantino. Sure, you can still see your friends. Use the mother app on your phone. But unless you just ran out of groceries, please stay the at home. Thank you for doing your part to flatten the curve, because that is steep. And now that you're home, please feel free to go the to sleep. The end.
Guys, welcome to another episode of the Eric Dawson Radio Show. Stay home. I don't care what they tell you. Stay home if you can stay home. We are flattening the curve. There are a considerable amount of people who are being considerate and caring. And, I continue to beat the conspiracy theorists upside the head because they are doing nothing but creating confusion in the marketplace and creating danger for us all. Anyway, I believe we're going to get a call in later from Diane and maybe even Vincent. But I am pleased to announce, and because of my time constraints this morning, I wasn't able to set up the technology to have her debut live and in full color on the screen via Skype. But we'll do that next week. But I have Deirdre Viney here with us on the phone, and she's going to join us every Tuesday, guys. Now, I posted a portion of her bio on my page yesterday, and asked you guys to all give her a nice welcome and to make sure you shared it, because her being here on the show is going to be critical during the age of COVID-19. It's going to be absolutely critical as we look to figure out how our community in particular, but all communities, get back to work, retool or refresh themselves. There'll be emerging jobs. There'll be jobs that fall off and disappear because of this coronavirus. And how are you preparing yourself? And 20 years she's been in it. And I'm just going to read a little bit of her bio, and then we're going to bring her on. And I saw you called Diane, so good morning. But it says, Deirdre Viney is the owner of Express Employment Professionals of Jersey City, New Jersey. She has owned this business for the past 20 years. In her business, Deirdre and her team are involved in placing over several hundred employees in Newark, New Jersey, New York City, and throughout the Hudson County area. She also interacts with hundreds of businesses to learn about their businesses as well as the skills they require for their new employees. And together, she aligns herself to help as many people as possible find good jobs by helping as many client companies as possible find good people. So she's a matchmaker in the business world. And a lot of folks that I encounter, that I see throughout, my travels or, my posts or reading on Facebook, folks are looking for employment, trying to figure out, what it is that they need to do. Well, here's a person who can answer some of those questions for you if you have them. You can post your questions in the feed, or you can call in 908-481-5499. but there are no excuses. None. Good morning, ladies. How are you?
Good morning.
Diana, you there? Did I bring her on? I think. She got disconnected. So she's gonna be mad at me. Call back, Diane. So anyway, welcome, Deidre.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Eric.
Yeah. So no. Thank you. We geared this platform to inform, engage, and empower, and there is no better way to empower people than to give them the tools to be able to take care of themselves, right? And we see now in the age of COVID-19 that in our community in particular, we are, financially insecure, right? We talk about folks who don't have jobs that can, afford, decent housing, afford healthy food, those kinds of things. And hopefully through you being here and imparting some wisdom, right, and experience from your experience to them, they can do better for themselves. So, we all, and I'm sure all of those folks who are watching, thank you for being here.
No problem. And I hope there's a couple of the tips that I share, and I like to do this, on a weekly basis, will be helpful to some people. And I am looking for some questions, so I'd like I'm going to keep an eye on the chat as myself as well. Mm-hmm. If there's something that comes up, I'll certainly mention it to respond to it, because I want this to be an open dialogue for people to have a place to ask questions and an honest platform.
Well, listen, so I'm going to kick it off, right? They're opening up the economy now. And we did a show last week where the discussion, and it's always, the discussion is always around whether the proposed cure, which is self-distancing, shelter in place, stay at home, shut everything down. That is the proposed cure, right? But whether that proposed cure is going to be more harmful than the disease itself, meaning that the economy is suffering big time. And so the President of the United States is pushing to open up the economy. Globally, folks are looking at opening up their economies. You have governors now who have taken control and have said, some, that we're opening up our economies, and we're going to try to do it following some guidelines around social distancing, wearing masks and gloves and all those kinds of things. But I'm trying to figure out how the restaurant industry, the hair care industry, right, salons, barbershops, how those things are going to open up with safe distancing and all of the other things. How do we ensure that, they're cleaning surfaces and cleaning materials properly? How do we make sure that and without testing, without any of those things? So even if you have the safe distancing and all that kind of stuff, without testing and things, you have people who might be sitting in close enough proximity to you, and they may be a carrier of the virus. So I don't understand how that's going to happen. I haven't figured it out.
Yeah, that will be very challenging. I mean, I was reading an article about how they are reconfiguring office spaces to accommodate people returning to work, mm-hmm. So that they can have the 6 feet apart from each other to be able to operate effectively. Interestingly enough, a friend of mine talked to me the other day. They actually had layoffs, and her layoffs actually created 50% more space in this office building, so that they are now no longer on top of each other. They've got a huge distance between each other. So I've also been seeing what they're doing over in other countries, and I think that's a good headway to what's going to happen in the U.S. as we go back to work. Office buildings, yes, there is a way to do that to a certain extent. Even my office, we interview people. I can't interview someone from 6 feet away. It's a little challenging. And so, but there are some spaces where you can do it effectively, and they've been doing it already. I have some offices, some warehouses that I work with that they have changed the way people come to work now. But, and to your point about hairdressers and, barbers, those are very one-to-one kind of situations, or even restaurant. I think the whole restaurant industry is where it's going to start. That's what I've just heard this morning on the news, is that the ones that are going to come back, and I'm hoping that they come back, because we all know what happened with this PPE, which is really upsetting. But if they come back, they will have to sort of find a way to make me as a consumer, because I love to eat out, me as a consumer comfortable with coming into your store. Now, I will say I was a little reluctant, I'll be honest, initially when this whole thing came apart, eating out, because I didn't have enough information. I want to make sure these restaurants are keeping their, just like you said, are they cleaning the counters properly? But then I got a little bit more comfortable with it, and we do eat out occasionally. We go order, we do curbside pickup. But I think that these restaurants will have to find a way to convey that to me, the consumer, and the rest of us, that they are following safe practices with their employees, that they are following safe practices as it relates to cleaning their facilities often, and not cutting corners. Because as soon as you cut corners and you get you only need one story that might be able to lend it back to that restaurant, they're in trouble. Yeah. And as we know, small businesses are already hurting. Yeah. So no one needs bad press right now. They need to try to reinvent themselves. And I love how some of these restaurants have pivoted. I mean, to the point, I have a family of 4, and we ordered out on Sunday because I didn't feel like cooking. And this particular restaurant, they now serve, instead of their entire menu being open, they have certain items on their menu for a family of 4, and it's a prefixed price.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that, and I love how they pivoted.
Well,
I paid in line. My husband picked it up. It was great.
If they move to family style, right? Family style preparation, I think that they would win. Instead of these small entrees. A great restaurant that I love to go to, Carmine's over New York. They do a masterful job at family style preparation, and so that is somewhere to go. But this is what I want to ask you from in terms of employers. You don't only have to be concerned about the patron that comes in, whether or not they're a carrier of COVID-19. You have to be concerned about the employee. So if I'm interviewing for a job, have any of the employers told you any kind of practice that they're putting in place now to ensure that the person that they hire does not have, because they could be asymptomatic on the interview. They can take the job, be asymptomatic on the job. Is there any discussion in the employment space about how they're dealing with that?
Yes, it is. And actually, like I said, this started a couple weeks ago. We have a bunch of my employers. I mean, we all heard initially, and it was changing fluidly, right? That you had one of the symptoms of COVID-19 was that you had a high fever. And so now all of these employers are checking your fever as soon as you come to work. And so you're able to start work if your fever is low. You are sent home immediately and put on a 14-day quarantine if your fever is high. So that's been one of the things I've noticed right off the bat.
So that's very interesting because, and we were talking before we got on air, if you have a job that does not have sick leave, and you think you have a fever, I mean, I'm just, because I can imagine that this is probably how it's going to work, right? If they can, they're going to still try to come to work. So you'll have folks, if they have these kind of insecure jobs, and they check themselves because they know their boss, they know the company's going to check for fever. They're going to try to do whatever they can to go to work because they can't miss work. If the economy is opening, and you said this before we came on air, if the economy is now opening, you're now required to go to work. And so in the requirement of you going to work, this government aid package that they put together, you're no longer going to get that. And so you're back now being pushed into, maybe unsafe, insecure environment to try to figure out how to fend for yourself when government and the medical industry hasn't figured this thing out at all.
And I think that's a real point, because another thing I didn't mention is that a couple of my clients have called me for cleaners. And it's not necessarily that they didn't have a cleaner. They did, but they might have one cleaner. So they hired 2 cleaners from us temporarily to just show their current staff that they care about them. So these 2 people, typically 2 or more, bigger warehouses need more. All they did was clean around the area, making sure they're constantly wiping down all the public areas, the doorknobs of the bathrooms and whatnot, all those common areas, to make them feel comfortable. Because at the end of the day, you're right. If you have to go to work, and you might just say, "Oh, I got to go to work. I got to make money." The sick pay law for New Jersey is only 5 days, and you have to accrue that, right? And so if you have no sick pay, what are you going to do? You have to provide for your family. Those are some tough choices that folks have to make. And so I think that the larger point is that the employer is doing the best they can to provide a safe work environment for their workers. Because at the end of the day, especially if they're putting out food, and a couple of my clients are food companies. And so that's even larger issue, right? Because now you're talking about your food. And so they're highly regulated by FDA or whatever. And so they need to be on the careful side as well, USDA.
Now, when you say food companies, are you talking about food distributors, or are you talking about restaurateurs?
No, I don't have any restaurateurs. I'm talking about I have a couple manufacturing companies.
Okay.
That they do a couple different things. They manufacture the product.
Got it.
And end user. I don't deal with any restaurants.
Okay. So listen, let's get straight to it. If you have now, because a lot of companies, small businesses first, and then mid-sized businesses, and then now some larger businesses now are starting to shutter their doors. And folks, as the economy is opening up, are trying to figure it out. There's going to be a lot of competition, Deirdre, because of the number of unemployed people pushing back into the marketplace. This is going to be a employer's market, right? Because of the level of competition.
I agree. Yep, I agree.
How then would you say to the listener who's saying, now that the economy is opening up, I got to get back to work. How do they become competitive enough to get that sought after job?
So one of my first tips is, and it depends on your level of experience, right? But all individuals, I don't care what kind of position you're looking for, should at least have a resume. And your resume, this is the time now to sit home and work on that resume. Because you would be surprised, Eric, the type of resumes that come across my desk where it's 4 pages long and the person had 2 years experience because they want to explain everything they did over the past 2 years. But it's 4 pages, it's too long. And so this is the time now, folks, to update your resume because, like you just said, Eric, it's going to be an employer's market. And how are you going to be prepared to market yourself? Your resume needs to be concise. It needs to be 1 page long. Because we as employers, we don't have a lot of time to look at your resume. If we're looking at hundreds of resumes, we are literally, there's a study out there, and I don't have the reference of the study, but there's a study out there that says an employer looks at your resume for 7 seconds. You have 7 seconds to make a great impression. And if you have a 4-page resume, I can assure you they're not going to read the other 3 pages. So just save yourself the time and effort and try to be concise and put in as much information as you can in that first page. Now, one of the tips that I have as it relates to that 1 page is I love measurable accomplishments. And what I mean by that are I supervise 50 employees, including full-time and temporary workers. I manage a budget of $2 million. I worked as administrative assistant. I helped the company save over $100,000 annually by renegotiating our vendor contracts. Those are measurable accomplishments that I, as an employer and a staffing company, I love to see that kind of stuff. So there are tons of freebie things out there right now. If you can just search on Google or Eventbrite, there's webinars left, right, and center that you can take to really help you hone in on your resume. And if that's not your skill set and you say, this is just not an area I'm good at, we're all good at something, right? Then try to see if you can find someone that can help you with that resume. There are sources out there as well for that, where people actually do a resume for you, with your input. But you need to get that resume together, because if it's on a resume, you're gonna have to transfer that same information onto an application, and you gotta spend some time at it. This is not something that's going to be a 10-minute project. It may take you, a couple of days to look at it and review it, and go back and look at it again before you push it out to the world. Right. I mean, even before you do that, you want to make sure you have your email address up to date. Is it a business email address? That's someplace you're going to check all the time. Do you have a current phone number where someone can leave you a voicemail? Or did you set up a Google Voice account, which I love that option, is you set up a Google Voice account, and that's where all your messages will go there if you miss a call. These are things that you can be doing now to prepare yourself for a very, very, very competitive world.
And one of the things that we talked about when you were on before is folks should take this time and go clean up your social media pages. Right?
Oh, yeah, that's on there too. That's one of my tips too. Thank you, Eric. Oh, my goodness. Yes.
Go ahead. I'll let you elaborate on that one.
So, your social media is almost like your resume. That is your brand. And what does your social media brand say about you? If your social media brand says, I hang out with my friends, I have a good time, I'm drinking, I'm doing this, that's fine. But recognize that your employers, future employers, they're going to be looking at that social media page maybe sometimes before they even call you. Mm-hmm. And so how is that going to be represented in the public, right? Because everyone thinks, I have an Instagram page and it's private. No, it's not. Nothing's private. It might be private for you think it's private. You select it private, but people can get to your page. Anything you put on social media, you have to have the adage that it will be checked by anyone at any time. So this is the time, before you even do that resume, thank you, Eric, to clean up your social media profile. If you have crazy pictures up there that were fun and you had a good time with your friends, take them down, because you will hope that you can save your reputation, right? It's all about a reputation too, and it's all about how you want to present yourself in this brand. If you want to present yourself in the brand that way, then that's fine, but just recognize that companies are looking at it. And so this is the time now to clean it up, take it down. Even controversial things. We all get into heated discussions on Facebook, and we all know it. We get into heated discussions about things we're passionate about, or sometimes it's silly things, right? Just be mindful of that as you venture into when you're out of work, because controversial things, if you were, I don't know if you guys, you saw a couple articles, Eric, where people were actually losing their job because of stuff they said on Facebook. Sure. So no company wants to be associated with someone that's super controversial. Let's just keep it 100, right? And if you've got something out there that company might say, I don't want to be bothered with that person because they said X, Y, and Z. I'm not even going to bother calling them. I'm not even going to bother extending them an offer. If they have to choose between someone with a squeaky clean social media and you with controversial, they're going to choose a squeaky clean person.
Absolutely. And again, guys, above all, remember the climate out there. It is an employer's market. So they don't have to rush. They've got, I don't know, maybe thousands of resumes coming for one job. For one job. And so they can pick the cream of the crop. They're not in a rush. And so anything that might present itself as a strike against you, anything, you should, like you said, Deirdre, it should be squeaky clean. Everything that you do should be to present yourself in the best possible light, to give you the absolute best opportunity, because you're going to get one shot, one 7-second shot.
And to that point too, sometimes I'm going to keep going back to social media being the new resume. And I really do believe that. Yeah. Think about it if you on LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn, I think, is a wonderful, wonderful tool And if you don't have a LinkedIn page, you're missing out, because us recruiters and employers, we hang out on LinkedIn to find great talent. And LinkedIn should be an extension of your resume. And that's an extension of social media, because we can get social on LinkedIn as well. You can comment on articles, you can share things. It's great. Think of your social media as your resume, as your new digital resume. And what is that going to represent? And I love what you said. And so I love to use this adage, Eric, is that I always say, because my mother, I grew up in a really strict household. Mm-hmm. And so I was always like afraid of doing something crazy, right? And so if your mother or your father is okay with seeing stuff you post on social media with your pictures and your comments,
right, and
then you think they wouldn't be embarrassed or upset, then I'm sure it's okay. If you have anything like my mother or my father, they would be calling me 2 seconds later, like, what you put on there? You better take that down.
Yeah. So the top quality, and I'm going to stay on this, and guys, because it's really important. Top quality, for me, when I was the hiring manager, was I wanted above everything else to have somebody who was responsible, right? Somebody who was reliable. Because for me, the responsible person and a reliable person, you can teach them everything else. I didn't have the time to teach somebody to be responsible and to be reliable. And which means, and there's a lot that falls under the umbrella of responsible and reliable. See, if you're responsible and reliable, if I give you a task and you're not able to complete it, then you're responsible enough to tell me that you can't complete it and you need help. You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot that falls under there. So when I have responsible, reliable, I can go a long way with that person. But if you have an Instagram page or a Facebook page or a Twitter page or even a LinkedIn page that runs contrary to that brand of being responsible and reliable, meaning that you're hungover, you talk about you turned up on Tuesday and then turned up again on Thursday, and you know what I mean, and hanging out on. I'm looking at that, and then I'm looking at your resume where you say that you're responsible and reliable, and I'm looking over here, and I don't see any indication on your social media page where you're acting as a responsible and reliable individual. And so I'm gonna cancel you out, toss your resume in the garbage, and keep it moving. So whatever characteristics you want to portray, whatever ones you think are top line in the industry that you're in, please take this time and make sure that your social media pages align tightly with those characteristics, so that when somebody goes from your resume to your social media pages, and then ultimately to hopefully a phone interview, that there's consistency, right? That they see the same person in all of those areas. Because if there's any inconsistency, trust me, they can move on very quickly to the next person, and they will. So, So we've covered that, and I hope that we've done an adequate job. And you know what? And that includes what do you think? Because your personal life should be your personal life to some extent, right? You should be able to go out and have a good time. Having said that, I've seen photos of folks dressed rather provocatively on their social media pages, Deidre. Do you think that they need to take those down too? Or do you think that an employer or a prospective employer will look at that and differentiate and say, you know what, that's that person's personal life. They went to a birthday party or they went to whatever, and, they can dress the way they want to dress? Or do you think that, folks should take those provocative photos down too?
Well, that's a good question. So I'm going to be on the fence with that. I'm going to tell you why. Because you're right. It is your personal life. And that's the same reason I choose not to be Facebook friends with my staff. because it's their personal life, and they do what they do on the weekends or after hours is their business. And what I do, I like to keep my personal life personal. However, I will share that, again, we talked about that image and what that perception is. And if you're out having a good time, I'm not going to say that there's anything wrong with that. If you have provocative pictures of yourself, you're really proud of your body or whatever, I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with that either. But it's just the perception that a company may have of you. That's all. And if you're okay with that perception of you, then it's fine. And they might, it might actually maybe get you more calls. I don't know. But I just want you to be cognizant that what you think is private is not private. I can screenshot you because we're friends and share with my network they're not friends with. And one of those individuals may be an employer. So, there's nothing wrong with what you wear in the streets, even that. I mean, you could be something, you could be harmless, and you could be out in the streets or at the beach, hanging out with your family, and someone could take a picture of you and tag you. It is just that serious now. And I mean, even the younger generation, I do feel for the younger generation. I'm going to tell you why. Because everything is available in an instant. We all know that we've made mistakes. Goodness knows I've made a bunch of them as a kid. But I don't have it blasted out on social media because of some silly mistake I made. And now these kids, you can't take something down that you didn't put up.
Right.
So, I do think that the younger generation in particular have to be very cognizant, and they're looking for jobs too, right? The summer's coming. They want to get a nice little job to put some money in their pocket. Or you might even be, out of high school or even out of college, and now you're looking for a job, and you've got stuff up there in social media that, it might not be you. It might be your friends, and they thought it was fun that you were puking at a party, and they videotaped you and now put it on their page, and now you can't control that. So you can only control what you can control. So I don't want to make everybody crazy. You can only control what you can control, and just be cognizant of those things. You always hear the story of, like, even people that were running for a certain office, and they talked about what they did in their past, but they were scared a picture would show up. Yeah. Back in the day, we had pictures, but now there's video and audio that go with the picture.
That actually happened a couple of years ago, Deidre. I was working with a guy who was running for political office. He was running for Board of Education. Very, very bright guy. Actually, he's studying for his PhD now. And but early on in his life, he was involved in gang activity and was involved in, marijuana smoking and some other kinds of stuff. And there were videos of him throwing up gang signs and smoking blunts. And during the course of the election, that video actually made its way to Facebook. And so you're 100% right. You can't take it down, right? Because you didn't put it up. And so now it lives there, and you don't know who else is copying it once once it gets there, or screenshotting it. So, I mean, there's some things that you can't go back and resolve. To the degree that you can, you should. But moving forward, you should be cognizant of what an online reputation can mean in terms of you getting employment or not. So,
Exactly. And I think that, I'm going to say this. I think our young folks are going to save our lives. I think that 125%. So I just want them to be armored with tools to be able, because there are some dynamic young folks that I have interacted with, and I have been so impressed by them. But I just want them to be smart about some of the choices they make, and understand that, unfortunately, because of how social media works, they are literally under a microscope even when they don't think they are.
So there's somebody in the thread, and I don't know whether, and I'm just going to read it because these are the kinds of things, I think, statements that are kind of dangerous, right? It says, how about we abandon judgment altogether? And then the same person says, you are promoting a uniform society. That's dangerous. So what I'll say to this, and then I'll let you weigh in, Deirdre. If I am the employer, I get to choose. That's it. I get to choose. And all I'm saying is this: if you are an employee who is entering into a market, into an environment, especially one now that is going to be an employer-driven market, and you want to be successful, then you have to look at that. What they say, when in Rome, do it as the Romans, right? So you can decide that you want to go to Rome and do something different. Well, then you should expect maybe not positive results. But you can't decide that you want to do things the way you want to do them and then expect the person is going to contort their entire business and hire you. That's just not how things work. Caller.
Big dog, what's up, baby?
Caller?
Oh, I'm about to...
Caller?
Hello?
Yes, caller, go.
Yeah, this is, Bernard Clark. I was calling in to, really chime in on this discussion.
Go ahead.
Okay, so, I want to talk about this idea of code switching. And I think, when you look at the concept, it kind of like fits, this discussion, but there's a danger that comes with that mentality. Code switching is why, the Democratic Party, has sold our people, out, to be honest. Why do we have to, curtail who we are organically, to fit the perception of other people? We have a lot of individuals in our lives, who may have, made bad choices at the beginning of their lives. Let's look at brothers in the community that, went to drug dealing. That didn't happen, by happenstance. We're talking about a government that infused crack cocaine into our communities with the intention of breaking down who, our ability, to organize effectively, our ability to, be focused on, the agenda of securing our freedom. And we watched that play out in our community. We blame that brother, for falling and being susceptible to, what the government intended. Let's just look at it like this. The government was effective in, creating, the people they wanted to see in us. And now we're experiencing the ramifications of that agenda in our community now. But have we not had that mentality to, always adjust who we are to fit the perception of the Romans? Let's understand, Rome was the empire. Sometimes the empire has to be smashed. That is the reality that many of us, have been, bred from.
Okay.
So moving forward, maybe now is time to have that cultural revolution where, we begin to examine all of these practices that have put us in this position in the first place and call it spade a spade.
Right. So
we have yet to call out America. Don't blame me because I believe a system that has constantly shown me that it doesn't want me in its midst. Don't blame me for having now a skepticism when it comes to believing that same government.
Mm-hmm.
Like that to me is nonsensical.
Okay, so one second, Bernard. You're giving us a lot, and we're gonna unpack it, and we can keep going. But I want to pause for a second. So, Deirdre, listening to this as a person who's sitting there, working with employers, hundreds of employers, trying to fill jobs. A person like Bernard comes to you and says this, and so you're saying to him, hey, Bernard, listen, on this side, my employers, the ones that I'm trying to fill jobs for, this is what they're looking for. This is how they're examining prospects. Here, in my expert opinion, is what you ought to do in order to present yourself as the best possible candidate for that opening. And then Bernard lays all of this out to you. What do you say?
Honestly, I would say, to the point you said earlier, you are trying to represent yourself in the best possible light. Everyone at any phase of your life and various things that you do, you need to fit the dialogue of the employer. So, for example, if my employer says to me, Deidre, everyone here is required to be to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's a requirement of the company. I happen to not be an early bird. I wake up at 8. The requirement is that I be there at 8. That is a requirement. I have to make adaptations to whatever is going on in my life, be it get my kids to school, get someone to come and babysit, whatever it is. I have to make sure I'm at my desk at 8 o'clock, even if they don't do much at 8 o'clock. That's not the point. She said I have to be there at 8 o'clock. The same way with sometimes it's a dress code. They might say you have to necessarily wear, I mean, that's not it. Thankfully, that's kind of fallen by the wayside a bit with the dress code. But back in the day when I was very, very corporate, believe it or not, Eric, we weren't even allowed to wear dress pants. Did I sit up there and tout and scream and holler and hoop and holler that I, as a woman, had to wear a skirt every day? Nope. I put on my skirt happily, and I went to work at 8 o'clock. Yeah. Because that is what was required of me, and I wasn't in a position to make a ruckus. I wasn't a senior leader to say, hey, women should be able to wear dress pants just like men. Nope. I put on my my skirt, and I went to work at 8 o'clock. So I think in all phases of our life, we have to make accommodations that fit that space, right? You have to make sure your kids get to school on time. You have to make sure you get to work on time. Think about all the things that we have to do that sometimes we don't maybe want to do. Yeah. But we got to flex and bend according to whomever. So if a person came to me as a company representing employers, I just keep looking. I find send out individuals to work. They are representing my firm. Yeah. So if you're representing my firm and you're not doing it in the best light, the same way, I gotta find somebody else to represent.
Yeah, Bernard, hold on 1 second. We got another caller. Caller, go.
Individualism in an organization is something like an oxymoron. You can't have it. It's an organization, so there's not individualism in that. And I think that's what a lot of people go wrong at. Like, an organization, it's set up a certain way. It's not for this guy to do one thing and that guy to do another. Otherwise, it's not organized. It's an organization. That job is an organization. A corporation is an organization. So you don't really have individualism. You might get leeway, but people have to understand that if you're in an organization, you have to do it the way the organization is pointing and the way they want it done.
So Farrakhan, you're a business owner. You own a barbershop, right? You set rules and regulations. Let's say that that Deidre was in the business of helping, find qualified barbers. And so you called Deidre and you were looking for barbers. There would be some criteria that you would lay down, some things that you would expect based on your organization, right? And to have a barber come in and decide, well, you know what, I want to do it my way. How would that work out for you?
It wouldn't. And I've had that issue, right? Like, no, that's not the way I want it done. Or even with coming in at a certain time. Like, I got guys that used to go, man, I'm really not going to get in until 11, 12 o'clock. Well, okay, then not here. You can find somewhere else maybe to do that. But here, you at least got to beat me, right? Or be here when I'm here. You ain't going to come in and be my employee and come in after me. Right? And I had jokers that used to try that. Like, nah, that's not going to work. Like, if I got to be here at 10, you got to be here at 10. If I'm opening up the gates, you need to be standing next to me while I'm pulling them up. Like, that's how I felt.
That I found. Bernard, are you still on the phone?
Yeah, I'm still on the phone. Okay. I want to ask, these folks, how do you factor in, a company making rules like no dreadlocks?
Oh, wait, I'm going to answer. This is perfect.
Saying, students can't wear dreadlocks.
This is perfect because I grew locks for 19 years and I worked in corporate. I worked in the highest levels, right? I became a vice president of a major corporation. I had to cut my dreadlocks because I represented the company and that wasn't the image that they wanted, right? And I got a lot of ridicule from people who said, Eric, you should stand on your principles. Here's what I said to them. If you go on Wall Street, right? Bankers, stockbrokers, they're required to have clean-shaven faces. You don't see them with beards and mustaches. Now, they can quit anytime they want and grow a beard and a mustache. But if they want to make $1 million or $2 million and get a $250,000 bonus working for JP Morgan, they have to cut their beard and their mustache. So I could stand on my laurels and say, I want to grow my locks down in my ass. But then I might be out on my ass without being able to pay my mortgage. So I got to make those decisions until such time, Bernard, that I can have a company of my own. And then I can set my own rules and then say to people, hey, listen, I don't care if you come and have dreadlocks. All I care is that you get the job done. But I can't go into a business who looks and says to me, hey, Eric, my clients feel some sort of way about the way you look. Not just you, Eric, but in general, this particular look. And so we want to change that because this is the image that we want to represent our business. I have to say, okay, either I want to do that or I leave, but I don't control that company, Bernard.
I hear what you're saying loud and clear. And you know, we Americans have made those kinds of decisions and choices. What I am arguing is that the fact that you made, just like right now, you know, you're trying to, you know, the media is trying to beat people up who have a difference of opinion in how they want to move. Where, as far as the coronavirus is concerned, you have people saying, "Well, you're infringing on my right to live," or that argument. That's the same here. It's like what you're doing, and in doing that, is you're justifying the corporate reality. What happened to, what about, the movie The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo? Here's a sister who, had tattoos all over the place, but she was the best IT person for the job. And that company did not those individuals made provisions for that person. We have got to start standing on our intelligence and the credentials that we have amassed and get out of the business of trying to construct the perfect society. That sounds like Hitler to me. When you make provision for a company that's moving inaccurately or incorrectly for a democracy of a multitude of people. Americans
Let him finish.
Hey, Bernard. Hey, Bernard. I'm not trying to be funny, but that's where you're wrong. A job is not a democracy. A job is a place of employment. And that person who is the employer sets the rules. It's like in your house, right? This is a true story. I don't know how old you are, but I remember when my younger brother, who was probably still in high school, and he was letting his hair grow. Nobody quite knew why he was letting it go so wild, but then he popped up one day with his hair twisted. My father said to him, boy, get that undone, and if you don't do it, you're going to get it cut off. Because in his father's house, my father's house, he wasn't having his kids with dreads for whatever reason. Right? But that was in his house. And in his house, there was no democracy. In his house, it was you going to do what me and my wife say. And the same thing goes for an employer. This is not a democracy in somebody's corporation that I'm setting up, designing, creating, and promoting. No. In this situation, you do as I do and as I want done. So it's not a democracy in a corporate America.
And that's the problem. Now we have to adjust that problem. Or we're not. And what I'm suggesting is that, individuals who just bow down, to that kind of tyranny, the corporation, if you're going to be a corporation or a business in this culture, this is America we're talking about. This isn't China. Okay? Companies will operate differently in a capitalist regime versus a communist regime. Now, what I'm suggesting here is that when you want to do business in America, do business the American way. And we should, always stand in defense of our liberties. Always. There should never be a moment where we compromise that. Now, personally speaking, I would challenge the company and then allow them to make the decision to execute me. I've led a protest movement of parents and students in Newark, New Jersey that cost me a position. I'm not fighting over the position. I could get a position anywhere. The point is, we have got to stand on principles in terms of what we believe, and by any means necessary.
Got it.
The corporation. So where do your principles come into somebody else's corporation?
Just get personal lives to fit the mood of other people.
Right. Okay. Well, Bernard, thanks, man. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you calling in.
No doubt, brother. I was responding to one of the people who said I should call in to express that point of view.
Yes,
and,
sir.
we can agree to disagree. Let's be diametrically opposed.
Absolutely.
And that's fine. As long as we can build, that's what debate is about. That's what the Socratic method is about. Being able to build based off of our ideas and not one person feeling like they can't make put their ideas out for, a fear of reprisal.
I agree.
All right, brother, you have a good one.
Hey, you too. We had another caller who was calling in. Caller, please try calling back. I couldn't answer right away. So you heard all of that, Deidre, and I just gotta imagine that. I mean, he has a right to feel that way, and there are a lot of people who feel that way. Like, I'm not going to compromise, right?
Yep.
I'm going to be who I'm going to be. How does that work for you, in terms of trying to help them find gainful employment? Let me take this call first. Come on, caller, please hold. So how does that work for you, Deirdre?
Well, individuality is important, right, in any aspect. But I think the other caller talked about this is a company, and a company sets the rules, and what those rules are, we should follow. Yes, they do look for individuals to work for them. We're not going to be all homogenous. That's ridiculous, right? We all have different thoughts and opinions, and they want that. When you're coming to a place of employment, they want different, diverse points of view to move along their ultimate mission, right?
Right.
But if they say to you, there's a certain time you got to be to work, a certain time you might have to take lunch, a certain time you get to leave, and yes, they might have a dress code, and it might actually include your hair. Yeah. That is it is reality. And I think to the larger point is, if you're the kind of person that doesn't work for you, then my recommendations is, it sounds like you may need to work alone. You may need to own your own company, and then you can set your own rules for your own employees to follow, or just be self-employed. I mean, self-employment is a novel world as well, where you're doing something, and maybe you have a bunch of different customers, and you work from home, and you set your own hours. That may not work for an employer. A day-to-day, going into the office or going into the workplace, and that's, everyone's different. We all have our different ideologies. Remember I mentioned how I had to wear that skirt to work every day, and I thought it was ridiculous. Right. But I was 22 years old. I was fresh out of college. I was my very first job out of college. I wasn't in a position to rock the boat about how chauvinistic I felt it was that all women had to wear skirts and not pantsuits. It just wasn't my space.
Right.
I put on my skirt. I got them tailored, let them fit really nice, and I wore my skirt to work with no problem. Years later, they did wind up changing the rule that women were allowed to wear pants. But, I was not in position to, tout my individuality. Yeah. And I just wanted to work, and this was my very first job from college.
Well, here's something very interesting. I remember, and caller, give me 1 second. And it took me a while to understand this. It took me to become a hiring manager to understand this term. And when I became a hiring manager and understood this term, it just opened up a whole world for me. And the term is, you're not a good fit. You're not a good fit. And what that means is, like you said, Deirdre, a company has goals, they have vision statements and mission statements. And those vision and mission statements, which define the brand of the company and how they plan to achieve whatever their projected goals are, those are all established. And now what they're looking for are people to come in and fit into that, right? And so when you say, well, you did all of that work in establishing your vision and mission for your company and how you want to operate and how you want to message out to customers or vendors, or how you want to be internally branded to your employees. But I want to come in now and I want to be an individual that wants to upset all of this. They look at you and say, you're not a good fit. And then that should be okay. Not that you get upset with them about it. You look and say, well, because what I say is this too. You shouldn't want to work for a company that you're not a good fit at. It would be a miserable experience for you and for them. So the best thing they could do, the best thing you could do is be honest in your interview, right? So that they could properly evaluate you and determine, based on their internal and external branding, their mission and vision statements, their goals and objectives, whether or not you would be a good fit. Call or go.
Hey, man, I don't know where to start, but I'm going to start here. When Donald Trump was running for president, and I talked to people, they said they were going to vote for him because he was a businessman. And he wanted the businessman running thing. But the key component you guys are leaving out in your argument against the young man, not that nobody's all wrong and nobody's all right, but you're leaving out labor laws. And yeah, the company has latitude and discretion, but when those latitudes and discretions violate labor laws, then that company has a problem. And someone saying that you're not a perfect fit is that, never mind if you're qualified or not to do the job, I can discriminate against you and get rid of your application on the fact that you're not going to fit here. I looked at your social media page. You're outspoken about your labor laws rights, but you're qualified, so I'm going to disqualify you. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you know, we came up in a place that I think the South rose again, and yeah, it's an employer's market because why? The South rose up again, and using this people. Now we got labor laws that say you can't go in a place where you know that you're going to get sick, or whatever you're doing is causing people to get sick. The federal government is going to come in, but now the federal government is saying no. We're gonna open back up, get you guys back to work. Nobody's been tested. 99% of the people haven't been tested, but no, money's more important. I'm out here. I'm in a big corporation, and I know that if you go against their business model and you're not savvy enough, not a lawyer or anything like that, but savvy enough to protect yourself, and you go against their business model, you'll be out the damn door. So I on some points, yeah, your social media pages, it's in our contract. Look, if you speak out or you do something on social media that the company finds out about you doing, they can X you. And you don't put the evidence out there for them to do it. And yeah, I agree with all of that 100%, but you can't suppress people's First Amendment right, because somebody speaking out on the job can save everybody's life. But since you're speaking out and you're going against the company's business model, we got to get rid of you. And they're not going to use somebody from management to do it. They're going to use somebody working right next to you to get rid of you. So, yeah, you guys are putting good information out there, but you have to put it out there in a balanced way that, yeah, the company has latitude and discretion, but there's also labor laws out there. That's all I wanted to say on this topic.
Thanks. And he's right. There are labor laws. There are discrimination laws out there. There are now laws around being able to discriminate against dreadlocks, right? But a company can say, depending upon the kind of company it is, that, long hair is not is not something that we want in this company. They can't look and say long hair except for dreadlocks, but they can say long hair, right? So we have to be really clear. And again, I think that part of the challenge is, and you are the professional here, the expert here, Deidre. But the challenge is the mindset that the would-be employee comes in with. In some cases, it almost seems like it could be adversarial. Like, I'm digging my heels in about who I am as an individual, and you better hire me irrespective of your business. I know.
Sometimes, you know what? Sometimes that works, and I'm gonna tell you what. Sometimes it works because I go back to the point that I made earlier about an organization is stupid if they're not willing to hire individuals with different thoughts of you, right? That's how Gucci got in trouble and a bunch of others that didn't have the right people in the room on their marketing team to say, hey, no, that's not, that blackface is not gonna cut it, right? So you need to have different voices in the room because you may grow up in a certain household and you were not exposed to certain people. So I'm just not going to call ignorance. I can't call ignorance. If you need to make it a point to try to find different voices in the room at a company. And so that's where your individuality can come in, right? You can allow to voice your opinion about whatever you guys are working on. Let's say if it's a product or a brand or whatever. That's the time to do that. The time is not to say to your other caller, I'm going to show up at 10 o'clock when everyone else is showing up at 8. And I ain't going to cut it because everyone's showing up at 8. And 8 o'clock is when we start, and 8 o'clock is when we start doing our job. Yeah. And so that is a way that I need to conform. Yeah. And then when you get into the space, corporate America is real funny too. You have to, and I remember back in the day, it is literally navigating. What I mean by that is, when you go into a job and you're a brand new person, 22, 23 years old, right, fresh out of college, bright-eyed, bushy tails, that's not the time to rock the boat. That's the time to keep your nose clean, find some good mentors within the organization that also can give you some sound advice for how to navigate your career. This is not the time to come in and say, oh, I think we should all start at 10. Oh, I think we should have 2-hour lunches. Oh, I think I should wear this. No, that's not the time to do that. Yeah. Now, you get to stay there long enough and get to be a senior leader. Maybe you might say, okay, well, let's have flex time because, Joey has kids to drop off at 9, so Joey can come in at 10, but he's going to work till 6. And, Deidre can come in at 7 because she wants to leave at 3. Like, right? But when you're in a senior leader, maybe at that time you can make those kind of judgment calls. Right? And they have trust and honesty in your opinion, and you're not just coming in to shake the boat just because you want to rock the boat.
Right. Hey, Diane, go.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning, Diane.
You're doing a great job. I just want to point out a couple of things. One, the workplace is not for everybody as far as working for large companies or for any company. Sometimes you do need to, like you said, Deidre, work on your own, being an entrepreneur. But you also have to remember, as an entrepreneur, your attitude still carries over because you don't live on an island. You still have to work with other people to make your business grow. Point. So that's important. Another point you made in regards to rocking the boat. Totally agree with you, Deidre. I remember when I started off in my first job working for the state, 20-something years old, going in there trying to make changes and this, that, and all these different things. And you have to sit back and think, like, how many battles are you going to be fighting every day, all day, just to get your way? Or is it to make yourself feel better?
Yeah. We got a call. Call or go. Caller? Diane?
The
caller must have hung up.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wait, here they go. Let's see if we can get them. Caller, go. Hello? All right, I'm not sure what's going on with the caller.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there was another company that I worked for in Montclair, insurance agency, William H. Connolly, and the owner, older man, and he's retired because he was semi-retired then 15, 20 years ago, and his kids worked in the family. He was very open, and I was not in management, to making changes and doing things to promote what you would say company camaraderie and make sure everybody was feeling good, so they did more work and they produced more for him. There are some small companies that do allow people to come in and they want your suggestions on how to improve the company, how to improve the morale. But to come in to somebody else's organization, company, and say, we're going to do this and this is how it should be and I shouldn't have to do this, is not how you're going to be able to excel in that particular company or anywhere else.
Right.
Because you need to be able to come in to be flexible, bendable, and you need to come in to learn. That's the first thing you're doing, is coming in to learn so you can grow. That's it.
So can we say this? And caller, I don't know why I can't get your call. Try calling back again. Can we say this, ladies, that you can make it difficult? Let's see if I can get this call. Caller, go.
Hey, what's up, Darren here? How's everybody doing?
Hey, Darren. Uh-oh, the labor guy.
Yeah, man. I've been listening to this stuff. So first of all, welcome, Deidre. I look forward to meeting you. I'm a born and raised Jersey City guy. Don't live there any longer, but my church is still there, which hopefully I could get you to come and speak at my church at some point. With one of the largest churches in Jersey City. And I also work for a union and involved with some other organizations. So hopefully we can partner up and I can get you some business. Now, of course, I look at it a little different. I'm a lock in Bernard's corner because I'm a labor guy, and I see sometimes employers push the envelope a little too far. And what I mean by that is I usually don't get the situation of before they actually, when they're potential candidates. Of course, we have my union has about 10,000 members in New Jersey, all hospitals, and nursing homes, assisted living facilities, and jails, and halfway houses, etc. So I usually get to the point where the employer is saying that I'll use my name, for instance. Darren Martin did something that was unbecoming of a Company X employee, and that's not something he's allowed to do. We saw something on social media, so we have to argue from the standpoint of this is their personal Facebook page, and the way we've been winning the argument, of course, is that if that employee is not showing anything like showing on screen with an ID or a uniform from that hospital or nursing home or assisted facility or whatever the name of that company is, or they're not mentioning that company's name, and this is just an individual thing, they have every right to do whatever they want to do on their page, and that's how they've been winning. But I do get Peter's point, Eric, your point as well, and Diane's point, that when you are a potential candidate, you got to try to, you're not in the driver's seat, so you can't make the decision. But employers should always look at the individuality of that person, because that's who makes who they are in their personality, and they are their best when it comes to that. So right. I see both sides.
So Deidre, because I'm listening to this is really, because I'm saying to myself, boy, as a person who's trying to find that fit for that company and pre-screening the potential the candidate, and trying to be successful in your business and making sure that they get it on that end, and in all of the individualistic ideas that are going on in this person's mind. I mean, it's a lot of work, right? But here, if I could distill it down to this, you want to work, I think, and you want to give yourself the best opportunity to work, I think, and you don't want to present obstacles that might prevent you from being able to work, I think. And if you understand that, listen, if I'm an employer and I'm looking for a candidate, I want it easy. I don't want it hard. I want it easy. And I get the idea of not violating people's rights, right? And that's what the HR department and all those other things are for, right? Lawyers, if you got to get to that. But if I'm trying to fill this position over here, right? I just got a forklift guy just quit and I need to fill it, and I want you to go through some of the jobs that you look to fill, Deidre. But in those jobs, if I'm looking to fill an empty slot, I mean, to get hit with a person who comes in and their persona is, yo, I'm going to be who I'm going to be. Right? I'm going next. I'm just sorry. I'm saying next really quickly. If I feel that, if I feel that in my gut, in that screening process, that's too heavy for me. And I think that what Deirdre said before should carry a lot of weight. That look, you have to figure out how to ease in to it, right? So yes, you're an individual, you've got some ideas, but to come into a company right out the bat, before you even get hired, an interview, and talk about how you want to change the culture to accommodate you, how you want to do these things I think those are the wrong times to do that. What do you say, Deidre?
I 1,000% agree. Can I say that?
Sure.
You're right. I mean, there is a time and a space for everything. And when you are given that opportunity and especially when a company recognizes that you're valuable, oh my goodness, you get all kinds of leeway, and you can get your voice heard even louder if there's something you disagree with or that you want to have improved. And to Diane's point, there are many organizations that say, we have an open door policy. We look for recommendations to improve our processes or whatever because we get our best ideas from the field. And if they're not doing that, I think they should be, because we don't all have the answers. And I think it's important that with the voices in the room, even down to someone that's the cleaning person at a warehouse, to the higher level ups, there may be a better way of doing something. They might say, oh, you guys are buying this stuff here. I know that another company I work for bought it for half the price at this place down the street, right? You know what I mean? It could be something so small that you don't think you can make an impact on in a big way. And look for those opportunities, but the time and the space to come in and try to change the game because, you want to be that individual as it relates to how they run their processes. It just may not be the right time. And you just, like I said, I go back to my corporate America navigating, and even jobs navigating, right? There is a time and a space to say stuff, and depending on your level of comfort with your manager, your boss, or your peers, you can get your point across if it's really that important. Now it may be a deal breaker, right? They might like that point of the guy that owns the barber salon. You can't come in at 11 and the boss comes in at 10. That's not going to work, right? And so maybe there's some things that are not their deal breakers, right? But there are other ones that might be like, you know what, we got a late crowd to come cut hair. If you could stay till 8, because I can't, I got to be home with my kids, then okay, cool, you come in at 12. Yeah. And so I think that just makes flexibility for everybody, because if you're bringing a voice to say, yo, dude, you're missing out on all these people that they're mad that you close at 6. Yeah. And now he heard he might not even thought about it. Might have just said my hours are 10 to 6. It is what it is, right? And you might say, but dude, I got like 20 people that want to get their hair cut from 6 to 8. Yeah.
Dude, I have a question. This is Darren. Again, in your work, do you find that most of the potential candidates are those that are
middle-aged or younger?
I have the gamut. And so Eric asked me to share some of my jobs to give you an idea of the jobs that I have open. We place forklift drivers.
That's my phone this way.
Porters.
Please mute your phone. Thank you.
Hello?
Yeah, mute your phone for a
You
second.
gotta mute your phone, brother.
Okay, I'm sorry, Deirdre.
We place forklift drivers, porters, maintenance. Right now, I'm really having a really hard time finding a maintenance tech, someone that's real handy. We place laundry attendants. We place administrative assistants. We place logistics customer service. We place reach operators. So to your point of asking what the age range is, it's all over. We look for experience. You cannot come to us without some experience. And I don't mean a ton of experience. You got a year under your belt, I can give you a job. But if you have 20 years experience, I can give you a job. So I don't have a right answer for that. It's whoever needs a job, we're willing to help. And Eric, I know at the top of the hour mentioned that we don't just cover Newark. We do have a lot of clients in Newark. I have a lot of clients in the port. I have a lot of clients in Ironbound section in downtown Newark. But we also service Hudson County. So that's Jersey City, Bayonne, Kearney. I have a lot of clients in Kearney.
And do me a favor, Deirdre, before you go further, right, because there's some new people who are coming. Introduce yourself again. Name your company, how they reach you, what you do.
Sure. My name is Deidre Viney. I own the office of Express Employment Professionals in Jersey City, New Jersey. We are celebrating 20 years in business in 2020. We help companies identify staff on a temporary, temp to hire, and full-time basis in Newark, Hudson County, and New York City. I will list in the comment section my phone number, but I'll say it right now as well. It's 201-333-8400. That's 201-333-8400. My website is expresspros.com/Jersey City. That's expresspros.com/Jersey City. Express Employment is a franchise. We have over 800 locations throughout the United States and Canada, and I happen to own the one in Jersey City.
Nice.
Excellent.
Deidre, was that your company's conference call? I was on a conference call last week, but these calls the same name seem like. Did you have a conference call recently?
On Wednesday, I'm doing it again tomorrow. 10 tips to find a job now.
Oh, I think it was. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, that was me. I'm doing. Thank you for that shameless plug. I'm doing it tomorrow. Tomorrow, I will put the link in the comment feed because it's a long link. It's through Eventbrite. Is how I'm doing the registration. But it's a Zoom conference call, and it's called 10 Tips to Find a Job Now.
All right.
In a COVID-19 world. And so it gives you a lot of tips, including the resume one I shared with Eric today. And I've got the social media one is in there as well. It's a 30-minute, as my mother calls it, an appetizer. In terms of, I can really dig deep into the other, all 10 points. And I will hope to, as me and Eric continue this relationship over the weeks, I'll be able to kind of expand on each one in a more thorough basis. But I'm trying to give everyone a kind of a big overview and a snapshot of these 10 tips. So I'll send a link into the Facebook feed. Thank you for plugging me.
And then
I took some copious notes. It was hot. It was hot. It was great. It was very, very helpful.
I'm glad you got something out of it. We're going to take this caller, and then I want to talk to you, Diane, about your daughter. I can't find the ad, but she does resumes, and that's what we were talking about at the top of the hour. But caller, go.
Oh, cool. Okay, so I'm calling back, to kind of maybe clarify here a little bit, because I think I'm being, miscaricaturized here. Okay, I'm not in dispute, with what the sister's outlining in terms of a working protocol that we should follow. I mean, I'm also, even though I have contradictions, that's dialectical materialism. On the one hand, I want people to conform to, the protocols being outlined by the state in terms of sheltering in place, but at the same time, I have another wolf that's saying, listen, do we really want to trust this place? So that's the same thing going on here. It's like I am not, in dispute of, people following. I've been a teacher for 20 plus years.
Oh.
I know what it means to code switch.
Okay.
I know what it means to walk into a school and, conform to the team you're working with. And, for the pushing of the environment. I understand that. But what I'm also saying is that there has to be another counterculture. Some people are in a position to, challenge the institution that they're in. What happens when these changes are made in motion? You're already hired at the school. And then the principal walks into your classroom and says, listen, instead of doing this, I want you to do that. Without no, effort made to understanding why that decision was made by the teacher.
So I think that's a different, and I get what you're saying there, Bernard. But what we're talking about is a person in the age of COVID-19 who is looking to be employed, given the current climate, understanding that it is an employer's market. How ought they be putting their best foot forward? That's what we're talking.
Explain how we're going to put our best foot forward if, black folk are made the, face of COVID-19. How do we navigate that? What are we going to do then when employers say, you know what, he's black, I don't want to hire him? Do we push back against that? What do we push back against anymore today? Are we always going to just lay down, to what the order says? Where's the opposition anymore? And why isn't opposition healthy? I thought that was healthy for democracy.
Well, but the question, but now you're using the word, democracy again when you're talking about a company, and you're talking about opposition. So what I'm saying to you, Bernard, is this: if I'm an employer and you're coming for an interview and you're emoting this idea of opposition to me at the interview.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying at all.
So what I'm saying, what I'm asking, what we're trying to get to is what the interview or the interviewee ought to be preparing for, and how they should be putting their best foot forward. And so when you use terms like democracy and terms like counterculture or pushing back, I'm saying I just don't know that those things ought to be top of mind when you're going for a job interview, preparing for a job interview.
Again, what I'm suggesting here is really simple. Either, if I'm looking for a job today, just to kind of, get in line with what you're attempting to argue here. If I am looking for a job today, let's say, Amazon, is hiring 100 people, and I apply for the position at Amazon. A conscientious, astute person is going to figure out what the job description is first. They're going to examine the company. They're going to do their research. They're going to learn what the culture is like because they want to nail the position.
Right.
So what I'm saying is all of that is accurate.
Okay.
Keep doing that. That's all I'm saying. Keep doing that.
Okay.
But there be those instances that arise where the contradiction is too glaring to ignore. And what I'm saying is, where is the training on how to deal with that? What do you say to the person, who is working, and then the boss comes and says one day, listen, I need you to, cut off your hair. I need you to, put a chip in your arm because the chip is, going to help me track you better as an employee, so I know whether you're lying to me or not when you tell me you're sick. What happens in instances like that? Where do you draw the line is what I'm asking.
Oh, I got you now. I understand where you are. And so I mean, I think that the portion that Deirdre handles is helping you get the job. What you're asking for is if somebody has a job, how do they navigate troubled waters, right? And so, right. So what I'll work to do, I used to be a part of a human resource team, but I'm going to work to bring on a human resource person, right, along with a labor lawyer. We have Darren Martin, who's I think still on the phone. So that brain trust will help navigate that piece of it. But that's a separate piece from getting the job, right? What do you do to
but it's also a piece we always forget about. And then when people find themselves in those positions, and, you know, we have one voice saying, just do it because you want to keep your job to do X, Y, and Z. You know, and then there's the other side that's saying, you know, why would I keep giving up my principles? You know, so the bottom line is, how do we navigate the personal principles of individuals and not violate that when it's easier to just go to the company and say, listen, X, Y, this is where we are. Can we, you know, understand one another as a beginning point?
Mm. So let me answer Bernard real quick so we can go to the next point. And I get what you're saying, Bernard. This is Darren. I've been part of a union for close to 25 years now. I deal with a lot of labor stuff. So when you're working, and let's just use the example that you said, because it happens often with a lot of my union members, and we in the cases all the time. There's a term, without getting too legal with everybody, there's a term called past practice. If you're used to doing something and you've been doing it for usually somewhere between 2 and 5 years, doing it the same way, and now this boss or this new supervisor or this new manager, whoever it may be, comes and says to you, I want you to now start doing it this way. Whether you have a union or not, you still have labor laws that back you up. Of course, with a union, you just go file a grievance, and we're basing it on the contract, past practice of the contract, whatever article it is, you cite the article, the section, etc., and you'll win that case. Even if you didn't have a union, you'll go to the labor board and let the labor board address that as well. So you have rights when it comes to that. As Eric said,
quickly, if you don't mind, I was in that very situation with the Newark Public Schools. I went to the union when I felt I was being violated. I contacted everyone who was even a part of anything that was necessary, and still the union showed no teeth.
Right. So we've moved this conversation, right, from where we were. So we can certainly address this, Bernard, right? These kinds of things in another segment. But this one was really about the economy opening up and folks trying to get ready to go back to work, and how people present themselves, and to have Deidre on to talk about how they do that. Now, I don't disagree with you that...
Carry on. I support that.
Yeah,
carry on, brother. Trying to be a conflict.
But listen, I want you to... But listen.
I'm built for the man and the woman, and who struggle at the bottom, and they never have a voice. That's heard.
Listen, but I want you, when we do talk about how to keep a job, how to work within a hostile environment, right? I certainly want you to call back and be a part of that conversation, because it is a real one. Thanks for calling.
Yeah. All right.
So, Diane,
I got a damn headache. That's what I got.
At the beginning of the hour, we were talking about the need for a resume, right?
I love Bernard, but I got a headache.
No. You know what, though?
The resume Taylor person is going to call in at 11:40. She's with a client now. She said she would call in to give you more details.
There we go.
You want to do a commercial break? So I can get rid of my headache. Look, I love my brother, but
listen,
look,
but you know what though?
We got to shoot straight from the hip when it comes with some stuff. We know exactly where you about to go, and this ain't what we talking about.
But you know what though? But it's real. It is
real. It's real. But again, and not to him, but to many people, you have to conform in some ways, somewhere, or you will be by yourself. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
So,
Bernard, reach out to me.
Go ahead, Darren.
Bernard, reach out to me. Bernard, I want Bernard to know he can reach out to me. I'll try to find out who from the Newark Teachers Union who should have been helping him out and try to assist him with that. So try to reach out to Darren Martin, brother. I'll see if I can help you out. One labor about to another. I'll see if I can help you out.
You want me to pass your cell phone number on to him? I'll give it to him. Send me a number, Darren, for him to reach you. Text me a number.
It's 201. 201-988-1706. You can call me directly on my cell phone.
There you go. So give him a call, Bernard. We'll be right back. We're going to take this commercial. We'll be right back, guys.
Do you have loss prevention or safety concerns? Black Belt Security and Investigations has armed and unarmed guards that can protect what is important to you. For security you can count on, visit www.bbsillc.com or call 1-800-493-1859 today.
BBSI. BBSILLC.com.
Before the resume Taylor calls in, can I say something really? Well, I think it's funny anyway. So my mother's almost 80 years old, right? And she's got a smartphone, and it tickles me every time she learns something new, right? To do. And so her big thing now is sending Bitmojis, and she sends them to all of her grandchildren, right? so and she likes to FaceTime, so we FaceTime, and it actually works out well because I haven't really gotten to be around my mother, the social distancing stuff and everything, right? So that has worked out. But I sent her a Bitmoji this morning, just kind of said good morning, and she sends me one back that says, "I'm so tired." And so I'm scratching my head, right? So I got it during the show. And then she goes, "Not tired, didn't know how to delete the Bitmoji." so she's trying to figure it out. So, but yeah, I just thought that was pretty funny.
So cute.
Yeah.
So you were giving out your bread recipe yesterday. What's up with that?
No. So listen, one loaf of bread, I want to feed a multitude, Diane. So I kind of got caught up in the religious side of that thing. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna give him the bread recipe. So I gave him the bread recipe. Vincent said his wife was actually making the bread.
Okay.
So, and
wow.
I would encourage. Listen, it is delicious. It's amazing. It's healthy. Well, as healthy as can be. But you don't have all of those preservatives and additives in it. It's just 4 ingredients: yeast, flour, water, and a little bit of salt.
Well, I don't have no yeast, so I guess I can't make it. Can I make it?
I'm gonna make it this weekend, Eric, because I've got yeast, and that's one of me and my daughter do these baking on Saturdays, and we're gonna bake that this weekend. I'll let you know how it comes out. It sounds like a project, though. I gotta let it rise in 8 hours.
No. You set it and forget it for 8 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you don't do anything to it for 8 hours, and then when you go back to it, it literally will have doubled in size. The only thing you're doing after that is you do those quarter folds, right? But like I said, because the dough is going to be really sticky, you're going to have to make sure you use a lot of flour. Like literally pour flour in the palm of your hand and then rub it like you would rub Vaseline on your hand so that your whole hand and in between is covered with flour. Because as you're manipulating the dough, you don't want it to stick to you. And then you just do those quarter folds. It takes not even 30 seconds to do the quarter folds. And then you know, this is what I didn't say. Because it is sticky, right? And you're going to have to transfer it to the Dutch oven. After you do your quarter folds, use some Pam and spray a pan and then put it in there. So that way you can just tip the pan over and it'll slide right into the Dutch oven and it'll cook beautifully. And that's it.
Hey, I'm going to try. I'm going to try it when I get some yeast and I'm allowed to go back out to the grocery store because, you know, Deidre got me on punishment.
Well, listen, Diane. My husband went to the grocery store last week because I wasn't allowed to go out since I got in trouble for being out too long. and on his menu, on my menu of choices or whatever listing, I gave him yeast. So he actually where I live. Let me know. I'll do curbside pickup.
Oh,
now you know he ain't gonna let me drive up there.
Yo, you guys.
Listen, I tried.
You guys.
I'll work it out.
Well, listen, we got another call. Call it, go.
Hello, hi, this is Diana. How is everyone doing?
Oh, this is the resume expert person.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
We're doing well. We're trying to get people job ready in the age of COVID-19.
Yes, definitely. This is a perfect time to be looking for a job and definitely to update your resume because there's a lot of companies hiring, particularly for work from home jobs, and just need different expertise. I've been working with a lot of people recently who are entering the workforce for the first time after being business owners or are looking for new opportunities after having served in a position for over 20 years at the same organization. And even if you're not looking for a job, it's just a good time to invest in yourself. I like to go by the saying, if you stay ready, you don't got to get ready. So take the time now to redo your resume so that you push your best foot forward or have it reflect any accomplishments that you've recently had. So yes, I'm just helping people do that at affordable prices because I don't think that you should have to break your bank to really invest in yourself and be the best version of yourself. So I'm definitely offering that out to people.
So what do you say about 4-page resumes?
So 4-page resumes is just too much. Typically, resumes should span between 1 or 2 pages. If you're going for an entry or mid-level position, it should definitely be closer to the 1-page mark. If you're going for a higher level position, an executive position, that's when it would get longer for the 2 or 3 pages because you want to be extremely detailed to show that you have the skill set and experience.
Yeah.
But typically, I try to keep it at 1 page because recruiters aren't spending a lot of time looking at your resume. Oftentimes, the companies that receive your resume is using what they call an ATS system, and they're just looking for the keywords to get you into the door. So that's the first step. Can your resume pass the computer test? After that, the recruiter is looking at your resume, scanning it to see if you have the education, if you've worked in similar positions, and then they're either calling you in or putting your resume into the note file. So the resume is just the first step to get your foot into the door. And then from there, that's when you would incorporate a cover letter or the phone interview to really seal the deal to make them realize that you're the perfect candidate for the position.
So I have I haven't sent my resume out in years. I hopefully never will go back to work in corporate America. But I had a 3-page resume.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a 3-page. I know. Listen, but this is what we were talking about, right? I'm not a good fit, and I'll say that I am not a good fit. And any company that that's not true. I might be a good fit for a company that wants who I am, but I'm not gonna to the caller's point earlier. I'm not gonna change who I am now. I'm 57 years old. This is who I am. And my social media platforms clearly indicate who I am. I am a controversial individual. And so when you go to look at my page, my LinkedIn page, my Twitter page, my Facebook page, this is who I am. Now they may see some value in that, right? Say, you know what? We want that, and it'll be a great fit. But if I ever went on an interview, I wouldn't try to hide any of it because I want you to know everything about me. So if you brought me in, we get along great. If you brought me in, being who I am. But I had a 3-page.
Well, I think also, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think that's also operating from a position of privilege, right? You have the privilege, you have the need to be able to come to be your true self into whatever space that you occupy.
Right.
Unfortunately, with the corona going on and even before, everyone doesn't have that luxury. So while I might feel like you, I'm not going to be going into my Angela Davis when I'm going into work because I got bills to pay.
You're 100% right. And you know what? If I had to do differently, I would. I'd go hire a reputation manager to go through all and clean out all of my social media pages if I had to. You understand? So you're right. I'm operating from a point of privilege right now to be able to do this. And I'm blessed.
I have a question.
Yep.
I have a burning question because I have certainly have a lot of my family members with these hard to pronounce capital G ghetto names. So, what's your advice to somebody who has one of those names? Because I hear it all the time that people who are looking at resumes, if they can't pronounce the name, they go into the no file. Do you recommend that somebody who has one of those hard to pronounce names use like a nickname or something on there, something somebody else, somebody calls them this, or I don't know. What do you recommend when it comes to that?
I think people should do what's best for them. This is coming from me. I have a very plain name, Diana Williams, but you don't know my race before. And I know that as someone who hires other people, when I see names that might be black, I always lean towards hiring people of color, regardless of what their name is, because I want to know, can you do the job? And I always push back against people that say they have these quote-unquote ghetto names and they can't pronounce it, but I can't pronounce half these Jewish names, but people try. So I'm not going to tell a person of color that they need to change their name because someone has a problem with pronouncing it. That seems like their problem. And every time you pronounce it wrong, I'm going to correct you. And something that's always been important to me, that I say every child's name correctly, because that's really all you have in this world. And if you can't respect me enough to say my name and to call me the birth name that my mom gave me, then that seems like you're the problem because I'm holding you to that expectation. Now, some people do choose to have easier names, and they present their Christian name if they're someone from African descent. That's up to them. But I don't think that it's necessarily a hard and true rule for anything. And I also think it depends on what industry you're going in, right? Because if I had a traditional, Nigerian name and I'm applying for a software engineer job, I'm using my Nigerian name because they know stereotypically that I might be really good for this position.
Right.
Or if I'm Chinese, I'm going to use my Chinese name because they know that we're typically good in this role.
Right.
So I think it's preference.
Well, you know what? And there was an article, and I can't find it right now, where it talked about how there's discrimination in terms of jobs based solely on two things, but mainly on the name, right? That they look at the name and based on the cultural or ethnic leaning of the name, there's a disqualification. We had a caller. Caller, go.
Heck no, Dad. My name is Farrakhan, not Frank. That's all I called to say.
No,
Ain't no nickname. You black. Our name is our name. Call me my name.
I know. I hear you. I hear you. But we can't. and I believe, and I agree that you should be called by your name, but we cannot ignore what currently exists, right? Which is, and not only your name, but also there's discrimination based on your voice, right?
And address.
And your address, right? Your zip code, your voice, your name, all of those things. They can determine, or they try to determine, whether you're black. It's easier, I guess, if you're Asian, or if you're Middle Eastern or something like that. But they try to make distinctions, and then, but Darren, this rolls all the way back to what I talked about, year or 2 years ago, and it shouldn't be relevant. But it is because of how they stereotype. When I always say, Eric, what is our brand?
Hey, Eric, funny is that I was watching CNN like the night before last, and they have a Asian lady. She's a doctor, and she comes on with Anderson Gupta and Sanjay Gupta, and she has this really strange voice because I guess she's trying to keep from sounding Asian. So she has this voice that almost sounds like it's like a robot. Like it just doesn't sound real. And I'm looking at her, and I'm like, is this really a person? Or is this like an AI visual or something? Because her voice is so weird. It's the fact that black women, all black women have that white voice that they put on when they think they're trying to do some official business. It's like, it's sad that we have to in order to.
I don't think it's sad. I think it speaks to the resilient people that we are, that we can be flexible and we can adapt to whatever environment that we're in. I'm not going to speak to my friends the same way that I speak to, people at work, or a parent at work, or a teacher. And it's funny because as I was growing up, my mom always said she would correct me on how I speak. And now I'm like, I got my degrees. I'll speak however I want to speak. But I'll throw ain't and y'alls in it because I got what I got. But if I'm still in a room full of white people, I am more conscious of how I speak. But I think that's a privilege because some people can't code switch. Right. Some people can't switch it up and, wear sneakers one day and heels the next day. Yeah. But as a black woman, I can do it.
So Diana, would you just announce yourself again, the name of your company, and how people can reach you?
Yes. So my name is Diana Williams. I have the business Resume Tailor, where we offer resume reboots and starting resumes from scratch at an affordable price. Our resumes start at $35. It's so low because we want to keep it affordable for people who want to get the jobs that they want without breaking the bank. You can call me at 667-666-0943. That's 267-666-0943. You can call or text me. You can find me on Instagram, Resume Tailor, and on Facebook. And then we'll be launching a website very soon where you'll be able to see all the different packages and some examples of resumes that can definitely tailor to your needs.
All right. And then we also have on the phone Deidre Viney. And Deidre, I want you one more time for people, and then talk again about your top 10 tips to find a job now in the COVID-19 world.
Yes, thank you. Deidre Viney, Express Employment Professionals of Jersey City, servicing businesses in the Newark, New York City, and Hudson County area. Those are where our jobs are located at. You can live anywhere, but those are where the jobs are going to be that we can place you at. We are hosting a webinar tomorrow. It's called 10 Tips to Find a Job Now in a COVID-19 World. It is free. It is on. It's tomorrow at 3 o'clock to 3:30. It is going to give you a lot of great information. If you do register Anna 10, you will be also sent the link later, because as the other caller said earlier, I think his name was Darren. There's a lot of great tips on there. You'll want to have a pen and paper ready to take notes. It's also a live webinar, so I will be answering questions at the end as time permits. And if time does not permit, I will answer your question offline. We hope to be really engaging. I'm looking to do things like this on a more regular basis, as I know that this is information I think is really important to people. Express Employment is in Jersey City. Our website is expresspros.com/Jersey City all together. We have jobs all over those areas I mentioned, including right now I'm looking for some laundry attendants. I'm looking for a maintenance tech. I have 4 positions in Newark. I just got today, even on the phone. They're not even up yet. In Newark, right in the Ironbound section of Newark, for forklift drivers. I have 4 openings right now for those roles. I have packer positions. So if you can go to our website, you can take a look at some of our jobs. We try to keep them as up to date as we can. But as I mentioned to you, even as I was on this phone just now, we got another job order from another client in Newark. So we're very busy. We are looking to help you get work and get work fast. Some of our jobs can be temp or temp to hire or full time, but it's designed to get you working now. My whole staff is also working remotely. So we are doing phone interviews, and we're doing Skype and Zoom interviews. So we are ready. Once we get all your information and you do an interview, you can get working the very next day if you fit the criteria what we have open. So we'd love to be able to be of service to you. And our phone number is 201-333-8400, 201-333-8400. You can also text us at that number, and one of the team members on my team will be able to reach out to you to do a full phone interview.
So listen, guys, I don't think that we've done a more powerful show, right? Where you have somebody who says, I got jobs, right? I got jobs now. And then we also have a resource if you need a resume or you need to have a resume reboot. Those resources are here and available right now, right? So listen, I want to say, because I want to end on this really light note. It popped up in Pennsylvania. They are, well, this isn't a light note. This is very dangerous. In Pennsylvania, they have big protests going on right now. People want to get back to work, so they're out in the street protesting at the Capitol in Pennsylvania. But as some of the states are opening up and some aren't, one of my friends sent me a note. He said, opening some states and not opening others is like having a peeing section in a pool. Right? Everybody's going to get infected. You understand what I'm saying? You can't have a peeing section in a pool. Either it's a pool that you pee in or not. But they got to figure this out. I know people want to get back to work. I know how painful it is. But look, guys, this whole COVID-19 thing is not a hoax. It's not a a conspiracy. It's none of those things. It's real and it's serious. And if we don't resolve it, it's going to get worse. The economy is going to get worse. Your situation is going to get. Wait, my grandmother used to say, "A stitch in time saves 9." So we could put a stitch in time. Right? We could do it in time, which means stay at home now. Take care of it now. Because if we don't take care of it now, it's going to get worse. Right? Deidre, I want to thank you. Diana, I want to thank you. Make sure you guys put your contact information in the feed. And guys, please call them. Call them. There should be no excuses.
They were great. They were outstanding.
They were amazing. They're amazing. And listen, Diana, if I ever decide that I want to go back, if I can, medically I can't, but if I could go back into the corporate space, I'd certainly I may give you my resume and just see if I did it right in the first. I don't know. I may have done it all wrong.
Well, she doesn't get free reviews, Eric, so don't be trying to get that from my baby.
Look, but I barter, right? I got some baked goods to give in return.
Look, you got some. Oh, we ain't talking about those baked goods, Darren. You ain't talking about those baked goods.
What'd you say, Diane?
What'd you say, Diane?
I'll definitely take some of that cobbler.
See. So Diane, stay out of our business. I'm working on something. I'm working on something. Diane's always trying to mess up my business. But listen, I want to thank everybody. Please stay safe. From me, I'm saying social distancing works. I'm saying sheltering in place works. I know that you want to get back to work. I know it's scary and it's rough, but you're putting lives at risk when you listen to these conspiracy theorists.
Today is my wife's third day out of isolation, brother. So she went for a walk yesterday to try to get her strength back. Let's say this thing is real, brother.
Wait a minute. Your wife was diagnosed with. Are you sick? I didn't know that.
Oh, I thought you knew. I'm sorry.
I did not know. Oh man.
Yeah, she got out of isolation on Sunday. I've been sleeping on the couch without even getting in trouble, Diane. You believe that? And long story short, today is her third day out of isolation.
Wow.
And because I was exposed to her, I wound up getting the loss of my sense of smell and my sense of taste for a couple of days. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, but see, here's the part, and see, you're gonna give me my soapbox, Darren. So here's where I get pissed, right? So you watched your wife go through what she went through. I can't begin to imagine the horror and the fear and concern that you had. And to see the people who were saying, go outside without a mask, we should be involved in this herding, we need to be exposed to one another so our immune systems can get, it's absolute nonsense. And it's getting people killed.
Yeah. Kill us. It's inconsiderate. I mean, we had to treat her like a prisoner somewhat because she was isolated to the bedroom, so she only had the bedroom and the upstairs bathroom. The kids and I could only talk to her, via FaceTime, and then I would sit her food on the tray, right by the door, call her and tell her it's there. If you finish, you put it back out, she'll call me, let you know it's there. I mean, this thing is serious, and even now, before she gets retested to go back to work, her doctor said, of course, be practicing social distancing in the house, and gloves, masks in the house. This thing is real. You cannot play around with this. So people need to just cut it out.
It's scary. It's very scary.
All right. Well, you all practice social distancing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to bake some bread now.
Great show. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Great show. Thank you, guys.